To ask me anything about politics, this is the place where you can ask all your questions about politics, and there's no judgments, there's no roasting, there's no debating. I know politics is particularly weird these days, and so it can be difficult to parse what is really going on and what is misinformation and propaganda. And so, this is the place where you can ask all those questions. You can ask anything that you like. There's no such thing as a dumb question, and there's not going to be any fighting here. There's no roasting, there's no debating. It is just going to be good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. Daniel Thomas, um, looks like you're just trying to, what do you call it? Looks like you're just trying to sell me on a package or something. Yeah, I gotta tell you, man, I'm pretty skeptical of what you just put in there, Daniel. All right. So, any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a good answer. This is not a show for fighting. This is not a show where people debate each other and yell at each other and say mean things. This is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. So, let me know. Just put your questions in the chat. I hope everybody had a good weekend. I hope everybody went out to the No Kings protest on Saturday, wherever it is that you live. And if you have any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Everybody's welcome here, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican or something other than that. Superfan says, "What's your favorite theory of Marx?" I mean, I don't really have a favorite theory of Marx. I'm not like a Marx expert, I would say. I just think that workers need more money and power, and the rich have too much. Fletch Lives Again says, "Awesome turnout this weekend. It felt great." I'm so glad that you were able to get out to the protest, Fletch. All right. Everyone's welcome here. Republican, Democrat, American Zuber says, "Are you ready for the Groyper takeover?" I mean, we really don't want the Groypers taken over. They're even further. They're even more extreme than people like Charlie Kirk were and Ben Shapiro. So yeah, we really don't want that. We don't want that at all. Kong Jag Skillywag says, "What's your favorite gun?" I don't have a favorite gun. Supa fan says, "That's not Marx. The goal is not better wages, but to abolish wage labor in general." I mean, sure, if you say so, man. Like I said, I'm not an expert. All right, we're getting off to a great start here. Zakari says the government shutdown is hurting everyday Americans. That is 100% accurate, Zakari. And if the Republican Party does not budge on extending Affordable Care Act subsidies, then Americans are going to suffer even more at ballooning healthcare costs. Con Jag Skillywag says Charlie Kirk was extreme. Absolutely, he advocated for misogynistic and racist policies, authoritarianism. 100%, he was extreme. Shellbug says, "What's your understanding of anarcho-capitalism?" Not a ton. I mean, I know what those words mean. I just don't know how it fits in reality. Zakari says, "I was supposed to close on a home purchase, but now can't because the government is still shut down." I'm really sorry to hear that, man. And I hope that you are on the phone with your representatives, letting them know, that this is something that is hurting you. Con Jag says, "I disagree." I mean, there's no agreeing or disagreeing. Like the people that supported him because he had extreme right wing beliefs, and the Groypers did not support him because he did things like talk to Jewish people, and the Groypers are anti Semitic. Rob28 says, "So, how about that fake video in Boston saying it was a No King protest?" I actually did see a video about that today, Rob, and the No Kings protest in Boston was packed to the gills. I believe that video saying that it was a lie was actually a lie. So I would just dig into that a little bit more, Rob. Shellbug says, "Was just asking, LOL. You said anything." I mean, yeah, I'm not mad at you for asking. I'm just saying I don't really know. I don't really have anything to give you. Superfan says capitalism cannot be anarchistic because it is inherently hierarchical. I mean, you guys are having a very interesting conversation in sort of like the ether of theory when there are very real consequences to our current political moments. I find, arguing these, $1,000 words and the semantics therein kind of misses the forest for the trees. Like right now, we are suffering from a president who is acting authoritarian, a rogue agency acting like his personal Gestapo, building concentration camps. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. They are shutting down agencies in the government that they have no legal basis for. We're suffering from for a constitutional crisis of the executive ignoring the judiciary, and the Republicans in Congress abdicating their responsibility to be a check on the executive. But you guys really want to discuss whether or not capitalism can be anarchistic or not, Con Jag Skillywag says, "Guess I'm an extremist then." Well, you might be. Like what do you view as like a really important issue in politics today? Kanja, Mia, good to see you again. Scott says that is proven a BS right wing talking point. That is basically what I saw as well, Scott. Okay, Tony Baloney says, "What are your thoughts on the investigation into No Kings?" I mean, that could mean a bunch of different things, Tony, but the Trump administration is looking for excuses to do state sanctioned violence and infringe on people's First Amendment rights. So they are drumming up a lot of bullshit around No Kings being connected to a group that doesn't exist, Antifa, saying that there is violence, saying that there's pro Hamas in there, saying that it's a hate America rally. And it's all bullshit. It's all just like, nonsense culture war stuff that is intended to try to scare away dissent or, use the massive power of the government to punish people's free speech. Con Jag says, "How do you suggest we lower house prices? Build more houses." What do you think is the issue there, Con? BS says, "I am Antifa." All right, well, you're the first one. I mean, we all are. All of us that do not believe that fascism is good are Antifa. So, but there's no Antifa headquarters. Let's see here. Woody says they're all white. Who's all white? Mia's LV Adventure says, and Trump says, "I'm shutting down Democratic programs. I thought these were programs for all of us." Yeah, you know, but it is true that Democrats support programs that help everybody, regardless of what state or city or income bracket you are in. And the Republican Party only helps people that are rich and white and Republicans. Weeb TikToking says, "Are you here to debate or preach?" I'm here to answer questions. I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to debate. I'm here to answer all of your good faith questions. Superfan says, "You live in capitalism, so talking about it is very relevant." All right. Parker. Person 12 says, "What is your background?" Do you mean like my educational background? I have my BA. And yeah. Weeb TikTokin says, "Enjoy the dictatorship." Wow, that escalated. Weeb, Webeat. Person 12 says, "BA in what?" I went to a liberal arts college. We didn't really define our bachelors in that way. It's just, you have a bachelor's in liberal arts for based on where I went to school. Jack says, "Thoughts on Trump's AI Harry video?" I don't know what the Harry video is. I know that he posted that video of him wearing a king's crown and dumping sewage on protesters. It's pretty embarrassing that our president is doing that. It's pretty embarrassing that it's pretty pathetic that that is his response to people that he is supposed to be protecting as the president. Why is it called the Harry video? Interesting. Okay, Average Joe says, "Good afternoon. Hope you had a great weekend. How would you respond to an individual that repeatedly accused you of being self-righteous for criticizing the healthcare system in response to their complaints about ERs being full of illegal immigrants?" I guess I don't think there's anything self-righteous. I just don't think that those words mean what that guy says that they mean. If somebody's saying that they think ERs are full of illegal immigrants, I guess I would just say, you know, that healthcare is something that everybody getting healthcare is better for everybody else. If you have an infectious disease, I want you to be able to get healthcare so you get it cured and then you're not out there spreading it around like crazy. I also think that the talking point about immigrants being a drain on services is also kind of bullshit. Whether or not the ER is full of illegal immigrants or not, immigrants pay more into taxes than they take out in social services, so they're a net benefit. Royal Chief says, "Do you agree most people are socially liberal but fiscally conservative?" No, I do not believe that most people are fiscally conservative. The conservative movement, the Republican Party, has been worse for decades than Democrats' liberal policies. So it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for anybody to be fiscally conservative if conservatives ruin the economy. Okay, Tim Custer says, "Didn't Obama fix healthcare?" He didn't. He made it a little bit better. And ever since he did, the Republican Party has done nothing but try to remove the fixes that he put into place. And so, where the Democratic Party is always trying to make healthcare better and better and better until we potentially eventually get to something that looks like universal healthcare, the Republican Party has been trying to poke holes and weaken and make worse and more expensive healthcare for Americans. Dayo says, "Don't want the government in charge of healthcare. They can't control the powers they have now." So this idea, Dallo, that the government is bad at things is Republican propaganda. And it is supported by Republicans being really bad at running government and, and torpedoing or sabotaging Democrats as they try to do government. But the government has a long track record of being amazing at things and being incredible at complex systems and delivering for citizens. We have at the front of our noodles a bunch of examples of the government being bad at things because that's what makes the news. But if you look at the long history of the government, if you look at programs like weather detection or USAID or the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau or Social Security, welfare, Medicare, Medicaid, the military. Yeah, it's just, GPS technology is the American government. Like it's amazing. Yeah, I would recommend you check out. I don't think you're going to because I don't think you really care, but I would recommend you check out a series called The G Word, where Adam Conover got really into what the government does, and it's illuminating how beneficial and productive and just like really amazing the government is. Normally, not right now, of course. Okay, JP, good to see you again. Viewer asking that is a periwinkle or lavender background. That's pretty funny. Let's see here. Average Joe says you can space this next question out. Drive and knock them out. Are establishment Dems dumb, naive, stubborn, malicious, or beholden to donors, failing to recognize that Mandani used social media to distribute how voters felt and not what he wanted voters to feel? I think there's a bunch of motivations for Democrats that are dragging their feet on on candidates like Mamdani or that dude in Maine and Abdul El Sayed in I think Michigan. And as far as like messaging is concerned, like they're trying their best, but the problem is that not every Democrat is good at messaging. You know, maybe is that really the government that we need or want? That all our politicians like their main skill set is in messaging as opposed to like governing. Like, yeah, this whole expecting Democrats to be perfect and amazing at everything narrative kind of annoys me, because I'm just like, they're humans, they make mistake. We are hiring them to do a job. I guess you could argue that part of that job is communicating to their constituents, but it's also just like there's so many bad faith actors with a lot of power who are purposefully manipulating our information networks so that democratic messaging gets blocked and becomes less effective. Alrighty, JP says U.S. military is part of the government. If you are pro-military, you're also pro-government. Excellent point, JP. Jorge says, "What's the G Word?" The Netflix show. It is Adam Conover basically doing some long form journalism into programs that the government runs and what's great about it and what's not great about it. And it's on Netflix. It's great. Santi says, "Are majoritarian voting systems the best way of implementing a true democracy?" Um, I think there's a balancing act that needs to be done where we vote on our representatives who take care of making a lot of the decisions for us. But you can have things like ballot referendums as well. I think that sometimes we go a little bit too hard into representative democracy. For example, things like gerrymandering and the Senate map and electoral college take way too much power away from the majority of Americans, de-incentivize people from voting or getting engaged in politics, and sort of entrench in power a very specific minority who they say that they are going to make decisions that are better for everybody, even though those decisions are extremely unpopular. So yeah, I don't think that we should be doing everything strictly by majoritarian rule. Sometimes the majority is wrong about things. But I think that we need to move closer to that direction because right now, the way that the government is structured, it is just an elite group of conservative billionaires that are deciding everything for us. I don't think that works at all. Hugh Man says, is the tolerance paradox paramount to civil society? I mean, I think the tolerance paradox being that you should be tolerant even of intolerance is a propaganda technique by which intolerant movements try to elbow their way into the Overton window, meaning like this is how they try to give themselves legitimacy is by saying you're supposed to be tolerant, but what about me? I hate Jews, and you're supposed to be tolerant to me too, aren't you? I believe that we have moved past that. I believe that the tolerance movement has acknowledged that it is counterproductive to be tolerant of intolerance. Okay. Forrest Dump says that's not the paradox of tolerance. Is it not? Well, then illuminate me. That's what I thought it was. Con Jag says, how do you suggest we lower housing prices? I already answered that one. I said we build more houses, Con Jag. What exactly did you think was the issue there? Let's see here. GJ says, is Pritzker an elite conservative billionaire? No, he is a Democratic billionaire. But most billionaires are elite and right wing. Let's see here. Human says, no, you were right. Okay, well then, I don't know who is Forrest Dumps is disagreeing with me, I guess. Let's see here. GJ says, is Bill Gates an elite conservative billionaire? You know, GJ, I know exactly what you're doing here, but there's over 1,000 billionaires just in America. And if you count them all, then you will find more of them support the Republican Party. 75% of all billionaire donations go to the Republican Party. There are more billionaires in Donald Trump's cabinet than any president in history. The platform of the Republican Party is to cut taxes for billionaire. Like this all makes sense. Like all the dots connect. This is not hard math. Scott Clymer says keep corporations from buying up blocks of homes. There's another one. GJ says, what is your source? I mean, you can just Google this stuff all you like. The only data point that is even a little bit hard to find, but literally everything else I just said is so like front and center, like you don't need to do any digging, is that 75% of all billionaire donations, political donations, go to Republican candidates. And for that, you should look up a fella named Robert Reich. He was a former labor secretary and professor at Harvard. But you're not going to because you don't care. Hugh Man says, can capitalism be compatible with the tolerance paradox? Any nonviolent removal from society would leave the intolerance intact. I gotta be honest, Hugh, like that question is it's a little ethereal for my taste. Like I tend to push away from things that get a little too philosophical when we are currently suffering through very real consequences of an authoritarian government. Hosu says, so then why are more rich people tending to shift more to the left than instead of the right? I don't think that's accurate that they are, Hosu. Um, yeah, none of that sentence that you just said trends with all of the information that I have. GJ says, Mark Cuban, is that a conservative billionaire running the government? GJ, again, for every billionaire that you name, I could name you a right wing billionaire. So we could do this. We could play this game if you want, you know. Nikki G, that's not a question about politics. Greggy Poo says, how confident are you that we will have an election in 2026? So the Donald Trump administration is going to try to cancel elections or fiddle with elections in order to give him and his party more of an advantage. And whether or not they get away with any of that is entirely up to people like you and me. So it has nothing to do with will they let us have an election? It is will we let them cancel or steal the election? So I'm confident that people will get out there and do that work, but we actually have to get out there and do that work. Like it's essential that we do. Let's see here. Nikki G says it's political to some people. Well, not to me. It's not. Let's see here. GJ says, go ahead. Okay. Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Peter Thiel. There you go. There's three to match the three that you put in there. Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin. There you go. Some more. GJ says Michael Bloomberg. Is that another conservative billionaire? I mean, he is a Republican, so he was the Republican mayor of New York. Like, what exactly are you doing here, my man? You know, GJ, I'm not here to argue with you, dude. Just go, just leave, man. If you want to ask a question in good faith, you can stay, but like, don't let the door hit you on the ass. Hit your ass on the way out. I gave you the information to Google, and instead you're just here trying to own a lib. So fucking miss me with that shit. Apple user says Trump is making money off of a Staley. That is accurate. Scott Clyra says, did any left-wing billionaire give 288 million in one POTUS campaign? No, Scott. In fact, that was just Elon Musk. Acorn says, how do we survive in a country with so many conservatives? So the issue is not conservative voters. The issue is the stranglehold that conservative politicians have on our electoral systems to entrench themselves in power. Now, the way that we get through that is that we all get out there and we do the work. But there's no reason why we can't coexist with people that voted for Donald Trump. Like, there are a bunch of reasons why they voted for Donald Trump, spanning from just like being shitty people or being uninformed people or being good people who are stuck in an information bubble. We fix that by doing the work. But once that's fixed, we can have a nice coexistence together. We have to fix that first. Okay. JP says Mark Cuban is a leftist. What the fuck? He's a huge Ayn Rand fan. Oh, that's information to me. Average Joe says my intent was to focus on messaging. My intent was to highlight his focus on voters' needs, while others focus on convincing their voters to just accept what they say. I think that's an open argument, though. Actually, Average Joe. Some people will tell you that the goal of a leader is not to follow the polling and just say what you think people want to hear, but to convince them that your plan is better. So yeah, I think like, I'm not saying that you're wrong or right in sort of like the implied statement of your question. But I do think it's an open conversation, and I think that some of the best communicators in the party don't bend to polling. They just tell people what they feel. And we see voters responding really positive to that uniformly. Okay, let's see here. Gian says 1979, the highest tax is 95%. Why? Because we didn't want aristocracy and we also had no debts. That is accurate, Gian. Okay, Anthony Delaredo says MAGA equals misogyny, racism, and bigotry. That's what the movement is, Anthony, because the movement is helmed by Donald Trump, who is a misogynist and a racist and a bigot. But not everybody who votes MAGA is a misogynist or a racist or a bigot. Some of those people are just stuck in information bubbles or are following propaganda and misinformation, stuff like that. Okay, Dom. Yeah, you just said any ideas, but I don't really know. Let's see here. Oh, Dom says what work? The work is a bunch of different things, and if you want more specifics about it, I would say go check out my Discord. Link is in the bio because I have a thread posted about what the work is. But short version is talking to people, convincing them to vote or vote for Democrats if they already are voters, putting pressure on your elected representatives and massive corporations and rich people, voting, organizing, protesting, striking, boycotting, stuff like that. Let's see here. GJ says misinformation. Who used that to suppress alternative viewpoints? Congratulations, GJ. You have annoyed me to the point where I am getting rid of you. Just not in the mood on this Monday. Dom says, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm very happy to have you here, Dom. Let's see here. The best politicians aren't those who tell us what we want. The best ones are the ones who follow their constituents. Yeah. Greggy Poo says, why is it Donnie can dump shit from a plane, but Hillary can't say deplorable? Because the zeitgeist, the cultural zeitgeist of America is that Republicans, what they do is never bad enough to not vote for them. And what Democrats do is never good enough to vote for them. We have a The information networks in America have decided that in order to be bipartisan, they need to overhype negative stories about Democrats and underhype negative stories about Republicans. Democrats never get any credit, Republicans never get any blame. That is just that is the it, you know, this was a project built upon by the billionaire class in order to destroy representative democracy, and it's working really good. Okay, Hugh Man says, "Is the Constitution was the fetus of monarchy?" Thomas Jefferson. I don't know if I've ever heard that before. I'm not saying it's not true. I just never heard that before. Gian says Biden was against abortion personally, that he knew the American majority wanted pro-choice. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's completely fine to be pro-choice, to be pro-life personally, but you have to legislate as pro-choice because it's just better logistically. You know, women get hurt when you make abortion illegal. Women who are not trying to get abortions die if you make abortion illegal. We're seeing that play out right now. Dom says, "Can we make America great again? I'd be okay with good. Can we make America good again? Yeah, I'd be okay. I'd be okay with good too. But if we're gonna do that, Dom, we got to do the work, my man." Hugh Man says he did say it due to how much power the executive branch has slash had question mark. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the issue is that the executive branch is currently trying to suck in all the other branches of government, and so we need to work against what the sort of executive power grab that is happening right now. Gene Bone says, "No, they're not. There is no state with an outright abortion ban." Gene Bone, I don't know if that's accurate, but also, yes, there are at least 5 women that have died because of abortion bans in red states. And maybe you haven't heard that, but that is 100% accurate, the thing that I just said. S.E. Morgan says, "We can't keep the same old Democrats in office. We need new blood." I agree with that, but we also have to recognize that if the newer, younger, cooler Democrats who are more progressive lose their primary, it's still better to vote for that old centrist Democrat in the general. Gene Bone 3 says, "No, it's accurate. I can assure you're lying." My guy, Gene Bone, I'm not lying. You can Google this. This is easily verifiable information. You know what? There's actually a thing you could look up. I don't think you're. I don't think you're here in good faith, Gene. Like, I don't think that you're going to believe anything that I say or send you. But there is, I believe, it's a newsletter called Abortion Every Day that outlines all this information for you. Let's see here. Dom says, "I'd like to have social programs for those who need it, but not for those who don't." Dom, I completely understand that argument. Like, let's all save money by not letting rich people do free college or Medicare or Medicaid and stuff like that. Like, if you have $1 billion, you don't really need your welfare payments, stuff like that. But I have been hearing recently, and I'm pretty persuaded by an argument that everybody needs to have access to these programs so that they can be popular, so that we can keep them and keep them funded. And if everybody is getting the programs, then everybody is mingling together. Everybody's the same, one of the ways that we eliminate the way that rich people think about poor people is by sending them to the same schools, for example. So yeah, I can understand. I can understand that. I think that the only thing that we do when we try to take rich people or privileged people out of certain social programs is we add a bunch of red tape and bureaucracy that actually makes it harder for the people who need those programs to get those programs. We also incentivize those rich people who aren't getting those programs to try to use their money and political capital to cancel those programs so that they're not paying for them and not getting able to use them. Oy. Average Joe says, "Would you rather have RFK Jr.'s voice or Trump's neck?" Or I guess Trump's neck. JP says 12 states have a total abortion ban. 29 states have abortion bans based on gestational duration. 7 states ban abortion at or before 18 weeks. 22 states ban abortion at some point after 18 weeks. Thank you, JP. Really appreciate you saying that. Again, this dude was just literally here to lie to people. So, but I appreciate you with the fact check, man. Okay. Next on Fox News, The Work. What's the joke? Why is it leftist Antifa say violence? That's very funny. Gene Bone says, "With exceptions for the health of the mother, why did you leave that part out? 12 states have total abortion bans," meaning that women cannot get abortions even if they're medically necessary, Gene Bone. What you're talking about, Gene Bone, is a vagary within the language in these states. There's a reason why women have died, and it is because doctors are worried about being legally liable for performing life saving care. Now, Gene, you are here expressly to push this idea that there are no states with abortion bans. And I am just trying to tell you that abortion restrictions in red states have caused the death of at least like 4 or 5 women that I know about. I'm sure this shit is still going on, where women are losing their fertility and are suffering because they are being denied healthcare because their state's abortion laws are written in such a way where doctors are worried, you know? But continue with your straw man, I guess. Aurelia says the correlation of Obama 2007 when opiates went up 400% and drugs have never hit shortage since. I don't know what you're trying to get at there, Aurelia. Gene Bone says they have caused the death of nobody. Well, that is a fucking lie, my guy. So congratulations, you're out of here, Gene. Goodbye. All right. Aurelia says talk about how government is connected to the poppy fields in the Middle East, burning competing ones. I don't know about that, Aurelia. It might be true, it might not, but it seems kind of conspiracy theory to me. Okay. Scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up. Kenneth Gomez says, "Why was Biden so incompetent?" So, Kenneth, I don't know. Did you read Jake Tapper's book that was about who knew about Biden's like mental decline and stuff like that? I'm assuming you didn't. But the Biden administration was far from incompetent. They did a lot of really incredible stuff. So if that's incompetent, like please give me fucking more of that. And if you think Biden was incompetent, like what do you think about what Trump and his current administration is doing, man? That shit is incompetence on steroids. Hose you says thoughts on Katie Porter. I like Katie Porter a lot. I think that the people that have a lot of money are doing a really good job of trying to smear her right now, and I'm just not buying that shit at all. Let's see here. Artemis Mom says, "Do you think the Time magazine cover was to highlight no scarring on Trump's ears?" Ooh, that's interesting. I mean, I haven't heard that theory before. I think it's a bit of a stretch, Artemis, to suggest that Time magazine was trying to communicate something that subtle to the American people. I don't think the American people are that good at picking up subtlety. Kevin says Democrats destroyed Democrats' fantasy future. That is inaccurate. Kevin, ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Kitschy Noodle says, "What's your opinion on politicians like Mondani and Plattner?" I love them. I think they're great. I think we should only have politicians like those guys, you know? Let's see here. El Pulsa says politics about USA or any country. USA is my area of expertise. You can ask questions about other countries, but I might have to say like I don't know. I don't know what that is. Tagarit says anyone who thinks Biden is incompetent is drinking the Kool Aid. Who thinks Biden is incompetent is drinking the Kool Aid. I mean, I agree with you on that. You know. Let's see here. JP says my wife had an ectopic pregnancy and would have been denied the required abortion in 12 states. That is accurate. I'm assuming it's accurate about your wife, JP. And I'm sorry to hear that you had to go through that. John Abbott says when laws are written to be so vague that hospital lawyers have to prohibit abortions to avoid legal problems, it's a ban in all but name. Accurate. Ecuadorian baseball pitcher says, here's what I think we should do as a country. I think blue states should be able to override everything Trump does because he's a 34 count felon and red states who like Trump can keep obeying him like good little dogs. This way, one side can live their lives, the other can do their thing. Problem resolved, that immigration would stop being brought up. I mean, it's a cute idea, Ecuadorian, but I mean, there's obviously a lot of logistical issues with that. Not the least of which being that being a felon doesn't invalidate you from being the president for some fucking reason. And also that the lives of people in various states are intimately connected. You know, like red states get money from blue states get food from red states. Parts are made in various states and then shipped to other states. Jobs exist over state boundaries. People have family in different states, you know? Yeah, you know, this idea of bifurcating America into red states and blue states, it's like, I don't know, it doesn't seem really plausible logistically. Dom says Biden had issues, but started out to bring people together. Completely agree with that. Gian says, however, he did everything to bungle it. Sad. Who did? Rachel says, hi, Jarrett. What are your thoughts on Buttigieg for the next election? So a couple of things about Buttigieg. I like Buttigieg a lot. I think he's a great communicator. His politics and the way that he goes about advancing his career, it's a little more centrist, a little more open to sort of like neoliberal, billionaire and corporation friendly administration. You know, I still think he's great. I like him, but he wouldn't be my first choice in the primary. The other issue with Buttigieg is that a lot of the left wing voting base right now is terrified about general elections. Like they have seen Donald Trump beat in two elections, two women, and one of whom was a woman of color. And so everybody on the left right now is asking, is America too racist or misogynistic or homophobic to elect anybody who is not a straight white man, knowing that it was only a straight white man that beat Donald Trump in the past. Now, this is the same country that elected Barack Obama by a massive margin in 2008. So personally, I don't think you should take that into your considerations when you are planning who to vote for in the primary in 2027 or 2028, I should say. But I also think it's a valid concern. You know, I cannot tell you that race and sex and sexual orientation and religion are not going to be a factor for some voters in this country because of their own conscious or unconscious biases. I just don't think that we can predict all that. Like we don't know what's predictable and what's not predictable. So I just say vote for who you want to vote for. Okay. Noah says, sadly, Trump was a direct response to electing Obama twice. Noah, I've heard that theory before, and I think it's a little overly simplistic. Like, if you read Dark Money by Jane Mayer, which I highly recommend everybody that you do, and if you guys have got your Ask Me Anything About Politics, bingo cards or drinking game, like that is obviously one of the ones to check. You see that it was not just racist America that was rising up against Barack Obama and voting for him. It was a concerted effort by the billionaire class to use any levers that they could in order to defang the Democratic Party and the left wing movements in general. So where racism was a strong tool for that, the same way that like Nixon used racism to win his elections, it wasn't the only tool in their bag, and it wasn't just that racist America sort of like stood up and was like, "We're going to vote for Donald Trump now because of this." A lot of it was information and narratives that were being fed to them by the billionaire class. Cuz 808 says, "Why do many people think Trump is authoritarian fascist?" Cuz it would be difficult for me to go through all of the reasons why people think that Trump is a fascist and an authoritarian. Suffice to say, it's kind of obvious that that is what he is doing. Like if you look at the things that other authoritarian leaders have done, attacking the press, attacking higher education, consolidating power, firing everybody that's not loyalists, massive corruption and fraud, sending the military into American cities. Like it's all trying to steal elections, incentivizing their base to violence and divisive rhetoric. Like it all lines up. It all lines up. I would say that number one is the elimination of checks and balances, like the fact that he is trying to dismantle checks and balances so that he can do whatever he wants without any kind of legal consequence. Thank you, Mia. I don't even know what what I said that you thought that about. Okay, Shork says, I'd forgotten that the Department of Justice was supposed to be independent of the president. They 100% are. And by all accounts, Stephen Miller is running the government from Trump's White House. And he is running the Department of Justice through Trump's White House. Yeah, it is wildly illegal, unethical, unconstitutional, authoritarian, etc., etc. Okay. Nikolai says, I like America about the politics, government, the American cars, people and culture. I do not like it's about America. It's a bit aggressive on the oil expansion. I mean, that is just one of many problems with America. Nikolai. Ecuadorian says, as an Ecuadorian, Jared, I'm just annoyed with America and them trying to invade Ecuador and trying to install bases in our country and trying to overthrow our sovereignty. I just want it all to stop for once. I am right there with you, Ecuadorian. Like I completely agree. The reason why I do these live streams is so that we can vote for politicians who won't do what this current government is doing, and trying to convince people that this is an emergency, that we need to unelect every Republican because they are doing things like ignoring the sovereignty of Ecuador and starting a war with Venezuela and continuing to send money and weapons to Israel, even though they're guilty of war crimes, and cutting government programs and instead building concentration camps and data centers for AI and canceling green energy projects for some stupid fucking oil gas agenda. It's just there's just so much that's so fucking stupid about it and counterproductive and damaging. Like I don't have enough negative. There aren't enough negative words in the thesaurus, to get into it. All right, Goonie McGooner. Boy, oh boy, do I have high hopes for this comment. Goonie Gooner says, "Wouldn't unelecting the Republicans just point Democrats in a bad space?" What does that mean? Unelecting the Republicans would point Democrats in a bad space. I'm not really sure what that question means, Goonie McGooner, but here's what I will say is that um, we need to unelect every current Republican because they are the ones who are allowing this to happen. I believe, and I think the data bears it out, that replacing every one of those Republicans with a Democrat would be wildly beneficial. Hold on a second. Live visibility restricted for 10 minutes. Your live is not eligible for recommendation and restricted to search results because your live does not comply with the For You feed eligibility standards. And then there's no reason provided. So that's interesting. Yeah. So I was just my live stream has been effectively hobbled for some fucking reason. That's pretty interesting. I didn't say anything. They didn't even give me a reason why it was hobbled. They said reason colon and then nothing. Isn't that interesting? It's just Nico or Nikolai. Okay, Nico, I'm with you. So yeah, replace every Republican with a Democrat. Vote for Democrats so that we can get rid of every Republican. Everything will be better. Tim says screaming racism doesn't work. Well, I'm not screaming racism, Tim, so I'm not really sure what you mean. Sony and you says someone probably just flagged you. Yeah, they do it all the time to try to take me down. John Bondovi says because you're a Democrat. Yeah, the algorithm is hostile to Democrats. We've known that for a while. Okay, Shork says, how do you get Vibe voters to not mindlessly vote? We got to talk to them. We got to meet with them. We got to speak to people in real life. We got to do deep canvassing. We got to talk to our friends, our family, our neighbors, our coworkers. Let's see who these people are, where they are, and let's try to convince them. That's the way to do it. Average Joe, good to see you again. Sorry, that was an instinct. I see you that you are still here. Yeah, Goonie McGooner. I don't know if you saw my response. It would create bias. There has to be bipartisan into solutions. I'm not saying I'm pro-Trump, by the way. So here's the thing. I don't buy the theory that if we replaced every Republican with a Democrat, that we would have a uniparty in the government, because the Democratic Party is a rainbow coalition. There's a bunch of different little groups that make up the whole of the Democratic Party coalition. And so even if you had only Democrats in government, you would still have the centrist Democrats trying to compromise with the progressive Democrats, and you would have the LGBTQ coalition having to make compromises with religious groups and vice versa. You would need there's like a bunch of people will constantly having to be tweaking and adjusting to things. So yeah, I don't really buy that theory at all that we need Republicans in government. And I think there should be electoral consequences to what the Republican Party is currently engaged in. You have to vote for me because then there'd be only Democrats and that would be a uniparty, is not an excuse for them to do the most barbaric and awful and unproductive things. I don't believe that we should allow the Republican Party to hold us hostage through this idea that we need them. Otherwise, it would only be Democrats, and that would be terrible. Let's see here. Sonia and you, very funny. Nico says, "Are you a lawyer, a judge? Because you know a lot of stuff." I'm not. I just pay attention to politics. JP says, "Do you really want bipartisanism when one party is making concentration camps?" I completely agree with that. Goonie McGooner says, "Do all Republicans in power support Trump, though? If they don't support him, they are not making it clear that they don't support him. If they are standing up to him, it is all happening behind the scenes. But where it counts, they are supporting him in their silence, in their votes for his judges and his nominees, in excusing his behavior. It is enough that they are allowing him to have a crypto coin. It is enough that they are allowing him to illegally murder people in boats in international waters. That is enough. That they are silent on that they're silent on Americans' healthcare costs going up 3x, electric costs going up 3x. That's enough. If they're silent on that, if they're not fucking, ringing alarm bells about that, trying to get their party to do something about it because they're completely in charge right now, that is enough to unelect every single one of them. And that I just named 5 things, and every single one of those was enough. You know what I mean? All right, Goonie, but thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Okay, Average Joe says, do you think the typical politicians speak unable to answer yes or no will be a liability for Democratic candidates moving forward? Yeah, yeah, the whole thing about Democrats not being good at messaging, there's a bunch of different factors there. I think part of the reason why Democrats sound like robots is because they have been yelled at so many times that they feel like they have to make every statement that they make the most milquetoast, universally acceptable thing that they've ever said. And I do think that people don't like that. That is, it sounds inauthentic, and people are looking for authenticity today. So yeah, I would encourage every Democrat to try to speak more from the heart and try to speak from their own voice. Let's see here. Mila Mayhem. Excellent screen name. Says, who needs to bring charges against him for the unaliving of fishermen in international waters? Ooh, that's a really good question, Mila. So, ideally, what would happen is the Congress would impeach the president for doing this. Congress would hold hearings with the people in the chain of command to find out exactly who ordered it and hear their legal justification. Um, you know, Having dug into this a little bit, and I don't remember all the specifics, there is no legal justification, so they are legally liable. One version is the International Criminal Court could bring charges against Trump, but America doesn't officially recognize the authority of the International Criminal Court. The UN could potentially do something, but again, like we have an outsized influence in the UN, so they wouldn't really be able to make any consequences happen to America. Yeah, if the judiciary was not currently being held hostage by the Republican Party, we could potentially see charges being brought up against everybody, including President Trump, for allowing those attacks to happen or ordering those attacks to happen. Yeah, we would need to get them out of government first because the government gives a lot of cover for people in regards to what they can and cannot get away with, and what evidence they can and cannot shred. Oreo 20 says, how can the administration justify letting most of the people go oversee the nuclear stockpile? I think that they're just reckless. Like, I don't think that they are making an argument that we need fewer people overseeing our nuclear arsenal. I think they are just saying, like, the government is bloated and we are going to put more money in your pockets by firing people. And if that means that we're firing people who are overseeing our nuclear weapons, I don't know. I'm sure it'll be fine. I guess it is ambivalence, incompetence. It's yeah, they don't care about how dangerous what they're doing is, and they're not making an argument for it either. Let's see here. Nico says, what do you think about Romania if they have a border with Russia in the future, if Ukraine is going to lose? What is going to be the situation for NATO and the US? So it's an open question what America's relationship is going to continue being with NATO, because Donald Trump and his Republican Party are hostile to those kinds of international alliances. So I don't know. I don't know if America is going to continue to have NATO's back going forward. I would be worried if I was a NATO nation, especially if I was bordering Russia with what appears to be escalatory actions by Vladimir Putin. and the fact that Vladimir Putin appears to be partnering with other adversarial nations like North Korea, for example. So yeah, I 100% would be worried. I don't have any good news for you about this. Just the fact that that Europe and America still are putting some pressure on Russia to not start a war with NATO. And yeah, it's a concern, and it is part of the reason why I'm advocating for people in America to do the work of getting better politicians in government. Because yeah, this is you know tensions globally have been escalating. The audacity of authoritarian leaders like Vladimir Putin has been increasing ever since Donald Trump came onto the stage in 2015. Like it's yeah, it's really scary. It's a really scary time. All right. Scott says they are taking money from the program to make ICBMs sites safer to rebuild the bribe plane. Yeah, probably, Scott. 312 MQ says I heard Trump got angry at Zelensky again, but not sure how true that was. I honestly I have no idea. Weirdly, he was at the UN advocating for Ukraine, but the dude he's got no principles. He has the attention of a goldfish. It is just whatever is best for him in the moment. When he's obsessed with getting the Nobel Peace Prize, he's going to be doing a bunch of shit to try to make peace happen. But when he's not obsessed with that, he doesn't really give a shit about Israel doing ethnic cleansing. He doesn't give a shit about, Vladimir Putin doing fucking war crimes and genocide against the people of Ukraine and potentially starting a war with NATO. Okay, let's see here. Oh, thank you, Feliciana. I appreciate you saying that. Tim says Democrats wanted to spend $1.5 trillion. They are responsible for the shutdown. No, Tim, that is inaccurate. Would you, Tim? Let me know if you're still here, Tim, and if you are interested in getting the real story, or if you're just here to spread misinformation. Just let me know, because I don't really feel like wasting my time. Ready. Average Joe says, "What is the reason for younger generations using terms like unalive instead of saying the word kill or murder? Is it an algorithm thing or a sensitivity thing?" It's an algorithm thing. People have seen their videos get taken down for discussing certain topics or using certain words, and so now we have this new social media speak where people try just to avoid, getting shut down in the algorithm. All right, so right now we are seeing the results of the shadow ban that TikTok has put on my account, where a lot of my TikTok viewership is tanking and the comments are really slowing down. So we will probably start wrapping things up pretty soon. So get your final questions in. And I just wanted to say thank you everybody for being here and for your support, your likes, your shares, your gifts, it all. Mila says or restart. I mean, I would be ending in 7 minutes anyways, so I don't know if it's really worth it to try to restart again. Pink Love says name of the book again. So depending on which book you're talking to, I'm guessing it was Dark Money by Jane Mayer. But Pink Love, you should go to my bio and click on the link and go to my Discord, because my Discord is recommendations for a bunch of different books and podcasts, and also recommendations for activism that y'all can do. Lucky Penny says, "Are we doomed? We are if people don't do things to stop Trump. If people like you and me do the work, then we are not doomed. In fact, we can have an incredible, incredible future ahead of us if lots of people like you and me do the work of stopping Donald Trump." User a bunch of numbers says, "Follow on YouTube just in case." I think that's the move. User a bunch of number. I think that's the move. If you have any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, my DMs are open. And you can email me through my website. And you can hit me up via my Discord, which again, link for all those things is in the bio. And do not be shy about reaching out. I want to answer your questions. I want to help you get engaged. I want to help connect you with organizations so that you can do some volunteering and do some great activism and talk to people and convince people to be Democratic voters. So if I can be that resource for you, use me and abuse me. Use me until I am all used up. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Discord is a great resource, as I mentioned, recommendations for books and podcasts and volunteer opportunities, and also a great way to get in touch. Let's see here. If you want to support the channel financially, you can, but you don't have to, of course. I know we're all struggling, but you can join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You can buy things from my store. Link for both of those things is in my bio. And also you can send gifts and become like super fans on TikTok and YouTube and Twitch and stuff. I am unfamiliar with all the various ways to send creators money on all the various different channels, but they are available to you if you want. And if there are things that you would like me to be doing on this live stream, like incentive programs or whatever, let me know, because I'm open to constructive criticism and recommendations. Let's see here. Mila, I do stream 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Not showing my pretty face. Great to see you. Late to the party. Have you talked about other countries stopping U.S. mail? Is that still happening? Oh, God, I'll give that a Google. Not showing my pretty face because I'm not actually sure if that's true. And I did see your message, not showing my pretty face, but I had a busy weekend, so I was not able to get to it. K Fa Gray says, I think you are great. Thanks for your work. Thank you, K Fa Gray. I appreciate you. Alrighty. Any last things over on Twitch or YouTube? Nico says, I'm a Romanian, and 2 or 3 times a week I can see from half a mile very big explosions and Ukrainian firing at Russian drones and rockets. Goddamn, that must be really terrifying, man. I'm so sorry to hear that. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your questions and your support. Get out there and do the work, everybody. Join the Discord and find some work to do and go do that work. Because the protest was great. No Kings was great. We got 7 million souls out there this Saturday, which was even bigger than the one before. So I think that makes this the biggest protest movement in American history. But that is just protesting is just one of many things that we all need to do together. And so do the work, be good to each other, be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. And I will see y'all tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye. 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 Bye-bye. Hold on a second, Average Joe. Did you see Medi's speech at No Kings? If not, I believe you would appreciate the humor. Yeah, I love Medi. I'll go check that out.